floss tube, pretty much. Sewing tube, craft tube, whatever. It's Lisa from the Pacific Northwest. It is Monday. It feels like Sunday, but long weekend. Um, Monday, July 5th. I am coming to you from the somewhat cooler Pacific Northwest. Yeah. Still warmer than it should be, but we have AC. I yeah, don't do heat. It affects me. I don't do heat. So anyway, I have AC. We've been fine. My plants on the back porch may have not survived, but I'm not a good plant mama. Never have been. So anyway, I am coming to you. There is no cross stitch in this. I picked up some patterns. I picked up the latest two in the Summer House Stitch Works 2021 Fragments in Time series. I haven't even looked at the patterns. I went to the store. I kind of looked around a little. I was like, yeah, I don't really need anything. Picked up my patterns and left. Probably one of the cheapest trips I've ever had to my local needlework store. And now I just realized I haven't even taken the patterns out of the bag and looked at them. My brain's been elsewhere. So I have been working on my cosplays. Um, yeah, so I have a FFO and almost FFO, and then some other ideas to talk about. So I'm going to start with the FFOs. They're, of course, hanging right out of reach. So the first thing I did is I actually finished my chemise. Um, it helps that, well, I wanted to watch Star Trek Discovery, and then the Spawn came in and so I was watching second season to catch up, and then I was going to go to third, and Spawn came in and watched a couple of episodes with me, and then they were like, do you mind if we go back to the beginning and watch? Because this is actually really good. Of course not. So, but I'd seen those episodes, and so, it's easier to do handwork. And so what I wound up doing was a lot of the finishing on my chemise by hand, but it is done. It is not perfect. Is it good enough for pictures? Probably, unless you do like high res. So the sleeves are extra long because I wanted to poof them because I'm going to have um, over sleeves. And so then that gives me the enough material that I can pull the little white poofs out. A lot of modern patterns sew in the poofs as part of just to make one sleeve, which is probably a pretty smart way to go. But no, I had to do it the other way. But I hand hemmed the sleeves and sewed the lace on, a little bit of lace. And then, yes, I used elastic. I hand sewed the bias that's holding the elastic. I hand sewed that in while I was watching Star Trek. But I just decided elastic for the sleeves was the easiest way to go. Although I think I need to tighten this one. I did one of them a little looser. That's because I was distracted by the season ender of that was on. Anyway, and then the last time when I made this, the neckline really bothered me because they had you do the pattern I was following online had you do a 2-inch wide strip of fabric, and so you wound up with like an inch wide uh, seam neck binding, and I didn't like that. That was one of many things I didn't like about that one. So this time I cut it down. I sewed it on the size it called for, and then I cut it down so that I wound up with about 3/8 to half an inch, and then I sewed that down and added a little bit of ribbon trim because I'm a dwarf. I didn't feel like doing embroidery machine or otherwise on it, and I thought this looked okay. So I think this will look really good. And then last night I finished hand hemming. Finished the hand hemming. Yay! Why I have to hand hem, I don't know. I just learned to do it that way, and I like finishing. And as I said, I'm not a huge fan of hand sewing, although sewing on the bias tape and stuff, the just the little seams, that actually went pretty well. But I really do like the look of a hand finished. So like the ribbon is hand sewn on, I went down both sides and so on. So anyway, but there's my FFO. My chemise is done. Now it needs a good wash. Possibly wash the blood sacrifices out of it. Get that done. The other thing, I am this close, almost literally, to finishing the cape in general. It still needs fasteners sewn on, but I'm right down to the bottom. I just have to tuck this in and stitch down the last little bit. I've had to apply the trim a couple different times because I had pinned it. Well, this is wool and it's a little stretchy. And even though I was being very careful when I pinned it, I wound up stretching the wool. And as I stitched it on, the fabric would pucker a lot more than this. It puckers a little bit just because there's stitches there and it kind of pulls in the fabric. And I did use a self-facing trying to help that a little bit. And I probably could have interfaced the whole thing and it would have done better, but I wanted a flowy cape and I don't know, I just kind of half-assed the whole thing. But so yeah, so it's almost done. And then all I need to do is add fasteners and find some kind of tassel or make some kind of tassel for the end of the hood. So I'm actually very pleased with this. There was something about the chemise, and now I don't remember what it was. The thought went, shoo. Um, Finishing. I remembered what I wanted to say about my chemise, so I'm going to add this on either in the middle or at the end. I might actually have to try my new video editing software and see what happens. So part of the problem with the original chemise, just a lot of issues I had with it, was I didn't like the way it fit with the gussets. And I've made a chemise with gussets before and it worked just fine, but this one for some reason I didn't like it. Well, I kept looking around and what I realized was, so my first attempt at a chemise earlier this year, I made using the instructions that came with my Reconstructing History patterns. They're not complete. The instructions are not complete. They skip some steps. And it's just something, you know, when you're really familiar with something and you know how to do it, sometimes you're not the best person to explain it to other people because you just, things you think about. And I know people who sew or do embroidery or whatever, we all have run into this where we get a great pattern and you're working your way through it. And then you're like, wait, this makes no sense. What are you doing here? And you know, maybe they skip a step, or like one of my favorite examples is one of my favorite sources for doll patterns, just beautiful, historically accurate ball jointed doll and fashion doll patterns are amazing. But she'd say things like bust the seams and I'm like, what are you talking about? What does it mean to bust the seams? And it turns out that, I mean, that's what you, when you iron your seams open so they look nice and lay flat. That's a small example, but you know, there'll just be like little steps skipped because they become so automatic when you're experienced and you know what you're doing, that you don't always think that maybe a new person or someone who's not as familiar or not as skilled would need to know this. So I decided I didn't want to go with that pattern, but I kind of still wanted a historical pattern, but I don't know. Well, everybody on the internet raves about this pattern, and I'm counting to 5 so you can see it. I hope I got a comment that was like, please show your patterns longer. So this is Festive Attire and their directions for making a, why does my head always start itching when I'm on camera? It never itches until I'm filming. Anyway, everyone raves about this and what a good pattern it is and how nicely it fits. And so I thought, okay, so I got this, I read through it, I made note of their, you know, one of the things in particular that Festive Attire mentions is make your sleeves extra long so that you have, if you want to, so you have material to poof out and some things like that. And so I liked that. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought I just don't want to deal with gussets. I like a modern fit. So I have a lot of patterns I've collected over the years. I've been sewing for 30 some odd years, and Joann's has been, well, before Joann even, you know, Hancock Fabrics, if anybody remembers that. What was it? Northwest Fabric. I don't know. There was a store here, a locally owned store that Joann bought out years ago. But anyways, I've been collecting patterns, so I have a lot of them. This isn't one of the oldest, but so I have a number of patterns with just basic chemise type outfits, but I wanted one that was particularly full, and then I didn't necessarily want one that was full length because I don't always make my dwarf dresses full length. I tend to end them at the ankle just because, I don't know, I like the boots. I have cute boots. I want to show them off. Anyway, so I used the measurements from this and actually made it a little bit wider because I'm a little bit wider or larger than the author is. She tells you what size she makes and why, and I'm a little bit bigger. So I used measurements from this, added a bit, and then I used just just the tops of, so I used the top of the sleeve and the top of each bodice. So I figured out what my dimensions were that I wanted, laid my fabric out, set the sleeve and neckline on the edge, and then I just kind of extended the neckline over to cut to encompass the extra fabric I wanted and cut those out so that when I had dimensions pretty much from the festive attire chemise, but the neckline and everything generally was from this pattern. And the sleeves, I didn't widen the sleeves that much. I did a little bit, but not as much as I widened just the front and back. So it seems to have worked pretty well. And then I used a lot of festive attires comments on finishing and hand finishing, although they also suggest a wider neckband than I was comfortable with. And I think probably that's period, that's historically accurate for like a 14th century, 15th century chemise. Um, I get caught between I want to be historically accurate. You're making a fantasy outfit, Lisa. It's a dwarf. It's a fantasy outfit. Who cares? And I want to be comfortable and have a pattern that shows me how to do it. So I'm kind of like caught between all of these things. So anyway, the chemise, that was my method. Top is fitted according to modern fitting. The actual measurements and a lot of the finishing is done according to a what we know of historical methods. Because again, there are not very few extant garments from this time, and so and not a lot of instructions. So we are working off of illustrations and paintings usually, and a lot of these paintings, sometimes it's like this was a guy who painted this, and he obviously had no clue what went into a woman getting dressed. He just there's no way this works. And so people have had there's a really famous Cranach dress by the Renaissance painter is Cranach, and you'd recognize the dress probably if you saw it. It's gorgeous. It's a stunning. It's like burgundy and this beautiful burgundy and gold striped skirt, and it's amazing. And it's the Cranach gown, and you look at it, and nobody can agree with how it's fastened. And I looked at it, and I'm like, I think I have an opinion, but what really I think it boils down to is that the guy really didn't know, and so he just painted what he thought he saw. Maybe I don't know. That's my theory. So for the cape, I did the same thing. I mixed two patterns. Next time I make a cape, I'm going to use one pattern, the hood, because I took a hood from one pattern that was kind of a Gandalf style cape and robe, which if you've looked at costume patterns, you'd recognize. And then I had two costume cape patterns, and I took a hood off of one because I liked the shape, and then I just used the other one because I liked the way the body was made. Next time, I'm probably just going to use the same hood and add the extra length because the dwarf hoods were extra long in back. And so it's kind of like a liripipe, but not. And honestly, I think the way Tolkien wrote it, they were actual medieval hoods, which were separate from the cloaks. They put the hood on and it had the shoulder piece that you can see that sits down here, and then they would put the cloak on. We tend to just put the hood on the cloak and call it good. And I thought about making it more like a liripipe and an actual hood, and then I just decided, no, I'm gonna just go with the cape and hood. Um, but again, I mixed patterns, and that's one I think next time I do it, I probably, and yes, there will be a next time. I'm gonna be perfecting my dwarf outfit until I die. Or just making more dwarf outfits, and someday there'll be a convention for dwarves, and I can have all these outfits to wear at the dwarf convention. Although I might have to work on one of my possible ideas for a Star Trek cosplay because going to that Star Trek convention in Las Vegas is actually sounding like kind of fun. It actually is sounding kind of fun. So we'll see. Anyway, I got sidetracked. So that's kind of what I'm doing is I'm mixing patterns and to get the look I want. Like I said, I mishmash it, cobble things together, and generally it works. Usually. Okay. back to your regularly scheduled video. I don't know. Okay. Well, anyway, so this is almost done. I just needed the days I was working on it. I just needed a little more brain power to sit down and finagle the ending so it looks nice, because one end is really pretty and finished because that's the way it came from the shop, and the other end is not. So those two. Okay, fall on the floor. Those two things are pretty much done. I'm really happy about that. I'm also approaching deadlines like, well, I could actually start sewing on my actual dress. Ooh, I'll probably do the sleeves first. The other thing that is almost done is the bag I was showing you last time. Um, yeah, it's all done. I sewed on the trim to cover the seam here, and I'm not entirely happy with how this is so lightweight. I didn't think about that. I probably should have used a little bit heavier pleather, but the tassels were cool, but they had glass beads, and so what I did was, yeah, this is kind of the front where the two, I need to stitch that down a little bit more. I figured it could have a double tassel, and I might add a third because I do have spare tassels. But I cut all the tassels off very carefully and then took off the glass beads and added the little silver beads. And I had just enough of these little square silver beads in my stash to make this work. And then I had picked up some more metallic looking cord, but it didn't pull smoothly when I let it open. It just didn't pull smoothly. So I added one loop here to pull the sides in when it shuts, so that it does this. And so then my next thing is I have some a little bit heavier pleather or faux suede or something. I don't know. I pick up random samples along the way. But anyway, so I'm going to, using my camera strap as a sample, you get down to the end of the woven part, and then they sew a leather patch, and then there's the narrower strap that goes down to actually hold the camera. So that's one of my goals today, is to attach something like that to these and then sew on my really pretty fancy tablet weaving that I bought from Lithuania and call this good too. So I'm actually making some serious progress on these, despite getting sidetracked completely into the project you see behind me, which I think I talked about a little bit more concept, but I bought a t-shirt a while ago. I probably have worn it in at least one of these videos because I tend to live in my t-shirts. I have other clothes. I just, I work from home now. I live in my t-shirts. And even though they want us to go back to the office in September, I'm kind of like, so we did hit 70%, probably a little higher in the metro area I live in, and vaccination rates. And vaccinations are amazing, but they don't necessarily always prevent you from getting, I mean, they'll keep you from getting super sick, which I'm all for. And I definitely, I'm pro-vaccine. I'm just totally pro-vaccine. But at the same time, there's always that little concern. And I work in a particular industry that tends to skew conservative for the most part. And I've seen a lot of commenting on company boards and stuff that a lot of people just are not interested in getting the vaccine. And so I'm kind of like, I think I'm gonna request to work completely from home at this point. The reason I didn't, I needed an excuse to get out, but with Spawn being here and other things going on, I'm just not quite as alone as I was. And yeah, I don't know that I want to be going out and hanging out with people in small enclosed spaces where, yeah. Anyway, enough about that. So I have a Sons of Erebor, a la Sons of Anarchy t-shirt that I got off of Zazzles years ago. I don't know. It's been a while. It was just one of those one-off fan creations. Three Hot Dwarves, Sons of Erebor. And I just thought it would be really cool to make a Sons of Erebor motorcycle jacket, a la Sons of Anarchy. So I was working on it and planning it, and got a vest and everything, as you can see. But the more I've thought about it, I'm not entirely sure I want to do something that glorifies uh, I think I did go into this. I remember. I'm not convinced I want to glorify racist, drug dealing, gun running, even if it was a great TV show. For what it was. It was really, really well done. So I kind of thought, well, I'll skew it more towards a concert jacket. And so that was what I was trying to do. This is my original concept. And I may go on and just finish it because it actually looks really cool. So a couple of these patches are the final versions. The Thorin and Company and the Quest for Erebor, I've satin stitched. I can't, they're too long. I can make the actual patch, but I couldn't do the stitching on my machine. It's just too big for any of my hoops. So I satin stitched those on my regular sewing machine, and then this I need to sew out again. But when I tried sewing it out, I'm finding out I probably need to change my needles in my embroidery machine. I'll have to a lot more often than I do. And so when I was sewing out the official one to patch, because this one's cut too close, there's no way I can use it. Then I need to, it started messing up and I need to resew it. So, but anyway, so this is what I came up with. I kind of like it. I have a set list. This would be all the locations that I'm thinking of putting down for where the band went. But I also am having fun making patches. Like, you'd want to do the Misty Mountain Fun Run, right? 35 miles, 2.5 days, and 10,000 goblins. Sounds like a blast. And actually, those are statistics. I have a book. I'm a geek. I'm a nerd. I have a book on all the maps of Middle Earth and the distances, and they go through and they have scholars have calculated the distance that the dwarves ran under the Lonely Mountains or under the Misty Mountains while they were running from the goblins, where they found Gandalf, how long Bilbo's side trip was, and everything. So this is documented, people. This is sourced material. So anyway, so I have a lot of fun, as I showed you with my Andre Norton homage. I have a lot of fun making these, although this is the best one. This is the one that was the best. The other ones aren't I haven't sewn any of them out yet. The other ones aren't as much fun or as cool. That one just kind of wins. So even if I only do that one, I'm okay. But oh, that came unpinned. But yeah, so this is my original concept. I still might go with it because honestly, wearing a vest as opposed to concert jacket, because when I was looking around at concert jackets, a lot of them from the 70s and 80s, they tend to be satin bomber jackets. And I'm just like, it's too hot to think about wearing one of those inside all day. It just is hot. So that's part of why I was going with the vest. But I got the black vest because I was still thinking biker, and it's like, oh, I want to try and find another vest. Anyway, but yesterday I was out thrifting with a friend. We were hitting up the local. I was looking for baskets. I think they were looking for pasta plates. Anyway, went on a brief tour through the local Goodwills. I found this jacket. It doesn't look too grandma. See, and this is what I was thinking about putting on the shoulder. Although I'm not really thrilled with how the pattern sewed out, and it messed up a little on the edging. I may see if I can get a different pattern. But then the thought is that I would do the same thing, only I would do it on the back. And then I would also use a little bit different color. And this was partly just to see what the cream colored fabric looked like on the jacket. This is a special satin specifically for sewing patches on embroidery machines. I get it from a company called Stahls, Stahls, and it's a polyester, 100% polyester satin twill. And nice thing about it is you can cut it out with a heat knife, which I obviously have not done, but you can cut it out with a heat knife. And if your thread is polyester and your fabric is polyester, it's not going to burn. It will melt, and I have fudged the edges of some of my patches that way. But anyway, so the other thought, and this isn't too heavyweight, I have it on good authority that it doesn't look too much like a grandma jacket. And then the friend I went out with is a deadhead. And so as we were going into the store, I said, okay, say you have a lot of patches. I know you have concert tickets, but say they were patches from all the concerts you went to back in the day. What kind of jacket would you put them on? And of course, what did they say? Tie-dyed. Hello, good deadhead, tie-dyed. But anyway, but they said, yeah, tie-dyed. And if not tie-dyed, a jean jacket of some kind. Well, I don't really necessarily want a denim. I mean, I don't know. Denim would have been okay, but I kind of liked this color. I thought it was cute. I thought I could work with it. And it was at the thrift store, so it wasn't too horribly expensive, even if I decide I don't want to use it. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about now. And so it's just kind of like, which one do I do? Do I keep going with that one? And, or do I with the black one that is kind of a more biker than concert? Or do I try for this, which would definitely be a little less scary or a little less intense, but hopefully still look as cool. And I downloaded, I own one embroidery program, the one I use to mix and match is called Brilliance, and it's the one I use to mishmash all my patterns together because, like I said, I buy patterns here and there and I mish them all together. But I get really frustrated because when it comes to making patches, it's not easy to add the lettering around it, and they only tend to have satin stitch lettering. So I downloaded a trial version of a different program, and it can use true type fonts. So like any of the fonts that are in my word processing program, I can type into this program as lettering on a patch, and it supposedly auto digitizes it. Now, I haven't sewn any of those patches out. That's one of my goals today, is to sew out one of those patches and figure out, see how they work. Because if it works, great. But if it doesn't work, I'm just gonna, I am back to what I was doing. But I am refining my patches a little bit. So it's like how many biggest problem is when it comes to Mirkwood and the barrel riding in the river, because there's just I'm having to, like I said, I have to mishmash, and I'm having trouble finding good patches that seem to spark ideas. I don't know. Misty Mountain, maybe I just need to do the Misty Mountain Fun Run and skip the rest, because that one's cool. Although I did get it toasted at Troll Shaw's, with marshmallows being roasted over a fire, and visit our new souvenir shop. Yeah, let's do a souvenir shop at Troll Shaw's. Smells a little, yeah. But okay, I've been thinking about getting back to cross stitch, really. And I think about my dolls. I think now that like I said, our state, at least our metro area for sure, did hit 70% vaccinations. And so the governor lifted all the restrictions. It's interesting, when I go out, I still wear a mask a lot of the time. And about half to two-thirds of the people are still wearing them, in particular people in the stores. And I feel bad because part of me is like, were you not able to get a vaccine? Which is possibly the case, which is really annoying. Um, but anyway, so we're thinking about probably starting up some of the more social events with my ball jointed doll hobby, which will be nice because I think that will be also inspirational, because I need something else to think about doing. But I also have my wig I need to remake. As I said, I have a wig that I have worn the last few years, but I bought a different one because I wanted to try something else. And so that's all in a box back here. And so that's what I need to do for Comic Cons: make my dress and fix my wig. And then I also need to do like the bodice jewelry. If you look at Renaissance medieval dresses, you have the Vikings with their apron strings, which are historically accurate. It's not just the TV show. And you also have just the bodice jewelry that people would wear in Renaissance paintings. If you look at early Renaissance paintings, and I don't know, maybe even later Renaissance paintings. It's been too long since I took my art history courses, people. And most of my research since then has been focused on like Venice, Italy in the 14th, 15th centuries, and a little bit of German um, in about that same time frame, because those are the places that seem to pull from for the costuming that I want to do for myself and my dwarves. Also 1960s mod, because that's what two of my dolls insist on being. So I think that's everything I have. And I just wanted to pop in and say hi. I apologize for not commenting as often on people's uh, YouTubes. I realized that I watch mostly on the TV in my living room when I'm working on things, and so it's not. I mean, you can't comment when you're watching on the TV. So I apologize. I'm trying to be better, or else I'm watching on my phone. And so I'm trying to be better about getting to my computer and actually commenting on people's floss tubes, because it's still really fun. And yeah, okay. I guess that's all I have today. Progress, lots of progress. I'm very happy. Now it's on to the next things to be done. So I'm going to go sew out some more patches today, see how they look on this coat. and maybe make a decision which way I want to go on the whole. Do I want to be a biker dwarf or do I want to be a deadhead dwarf? What would you call a deadhead dwarf? I have no idea. I'm going to have to think about this. All right. Take care, everybody. Stay healthy, stitch happy. Bye.